Welcome to Hooligan Radio, the podcast that talks movies, gaming, true crime, conspiracies, cryptids, and a whole bunch of other stuff. My name is Josh, and I am joined here by Zach and Isaiah. How you guys doing this week?
We're killing it.
Yes, we are.
I found a gray hair in my beard this week, so I've just been kind of terrified of getting old. That's how my week has been going.
Nice. When are you going to buy your Porsche? When are you going to go through your midlife crisis and buy a Porsche and a boat and a jet ski?
Yeah, my birthday was last week. I'm about to approach my quarter life crisis next year, 25. So
you're going to live to 100? You're a madman. I've seen what the back end of 50 looks like. I am not going another 50 years after 50, bro.
But imagine the technology by that point. It's like 50 is going to be the new 21, right?
Yeah, I'm going to smash my Tron bike right into the side of a building.
Your self-driving thought Tron bike.
Yeah, dog.
Someone needs to check up on Isaiah on his 50th birthday. Make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, I'll be like, look at this sweet Tron bike I bought.
I think I remember this.
I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
So Isaiah, what do you want to talk about this week?
Yo, so my childhood Disney princess is finally getting her remake, the one that I identified with because, you know, this was like the only other Asian movie was Rush Hour, basically. Mulan, their teaser came out. One of my friends was saying that there was talk that they won't have, is it Mushu? Is that the dragon?
Mushu?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's talk that he won't be in the movie at all. I was like, this might be sus. Have you heard anything about it?
I've heard that Mushu is not going to be in it, and they are not going to have any music. It's going to be a more serious take on the story, I guess.
Oh, that's some bullshit. That movie's canceled. I was trying to get down to business. Bro.
Out of all of the classic Disney movies, I'm surprised it took this one the longest out of like all the ones that have already been remastered. Like I would have thought Mulan before Aladdin, in all honesty.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I mean, I don't know why with Mulan, not only that, but the fact that they chose this one to try to take a dark, gritty, realistic take. I guess maybe because it involves war. I don't know, but I mean, you're still Disney. You're not going to make a rated R Mulan movie, so I don't know what they're doing.
That would be so badass. They made a rated R Mulan movie, and it was just like a Kill Bill remake.
That would be. I'd be on board for that.
I'd be very interested in that, even if it didn't have music. But I'm still about to pop a headphone in and listen to the soundtrack for the whole movie and just see how it fits. That doesn't sound like a bad gig.
The Let's Get Down to Business song, probably top 5 Disney movie songs, right?
Oh yeah, it's right for me. It's right behind Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride, and I just can't wait to be king. Mm-hmm. It comes in at number 3 for me.
That's all very fair.
Because the Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride, woof. Damn, that's a bop. I'm about to listen to it right now. You guys could record the rest of this, right?
Just gonna listen to that for an hour.
Yeah, dog. But yeah, the teaser is out. If you haven't seen it, it looks alright. I mean, I didn't know this whole thing about no music and all that other BS was going on, but I'll probably see it. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, that's what I've heard. I don't know. That's not confirmed or anything from what I've seen. That's just the rumors I've heard, so we'll see. I mean, maybe they just didn't want to put Mushu in the trailer because the CGI wasn't done and they didn't want a Sonic situation.
That could be true. Yeah. They didn't want a Will Smith and Aladdin situation.
Yeah, that first trailer, yeah.
Could be it. In other news, this came up to me while I was at work, and I was like, probably shouldn't click on that link. So I clicked on it recently. Some amazing person out there has made a Chrome extension called Netflix Hangouts, which makes it look like you're on a video chat with people when you actually can watch Netflix in one of the screens. So you can make it seem like you're working when you're actually watching Stranger Things. So, Zach, you motherfucker, you could get this shit done real quick. You can get this Stranger Things done we could talk about it.
So, what are the other people in the video chat? Just like random people?
I think so. Let me see.
Oh yeah, it says 3 strangers.
Nice. That sounds like.
Do you all have to agree on the film or whatever you're watching? I'm assuming.
No, I'm pretty sure it's just 3 fake strangers. You're not actually in a conference call.
Just force you into that kind of situation, though.
Now that would be interesting. You know how many people would just jerk off on that like it was fucking Omegle?
Instantly ruined.
They're like, oh man, I don't want to sit with 2 guys jerking off while I'm trying to watch Stranger Things. The people in it aren't even of age. So, yeah.
Watch Stranger Things.
For all you hoodlums out there who want to get away with watching Netflix while you're at work, like I have done before, not at my current job, but I had a job before this. They have an extension in Chrome for it. So as long as your company doesn't stop you from installing Chrome extensions, spoiler alert, if they're a good company, they will. You should be able to. You should be able to install this and sneak your Netflix binge sections all in to your work hours, and then you can do real things with your real life.
So, real quick, just to get real for a second, who here, either at a current or previous job, has watched a movie on Netflix at work?
I think I've talked about it on this podcast. I watched Oceans 11, 12, and 13 all at one of my jobs.
Yeah, at my last job, well, I shouldn't say last job, but my college job, working in the tech department on weekends, there would not be people coming in. So I would just sit there and watch movies.
Yeah, I can't say I haven't done it myself. So
sometimes you got to get that extra content in, man. When you got a podcast that rolls every week, dude, I can't not watch content while I'm at work. That's 40 hours I'm missing out on content for the podcast.
At least you have to get 20 of those hours back, at least.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Taking an hour lunch so that I can watch an episode of Stranger Things. You know, like a good podcast host would do.
No, for real though, people that watch either parts of movies or TV shows on their lunch break, I have a level of respect for that. I mean, I need that break to just just relax and get my mind off of everything.
I use my lunch break to watch YouTube videos.
That's fair.
Nice.
Yep. I watch gameplay videos of games that I want to play, but I don't have time to play because I'm at work. Because I have video game addiction.
So you live through the screen.
It's a real thing.
I'm in the acceptance phase. I'm taking the 12-step approach to stay addicted to video games.
Nice.
So speaking of Netflix, they actually just released some news about Stranger Things Season 3, and we're going to talk about Stranger Things Season 3 next week because we're going to let Zach finish it up, and we're going to go full spoilers and everything next week, so make sure you've watched Season 3 of Stranger Things by then. Yes. But they did release some numbers, and this is something that Netflix has been doing recently more and more because they don't release their numbers to the public. So no one knows like how many people are watching what or how exactly it all works. But they did release this tweet, and they said that Stranger Things 3 is breaking Netflix records. They said 40.7 million household accounts have been watching the show since July 4th, and that's more than any other film or series in its first 4 days. 18.2 million have already finished the entire season.
I'm one of those numbers. I'm both of those numbers.
I can't say I'm all of them.
Yeah, because Zach sucks.
So what do you guys think about that? 40 million household accounts. So that to me makes it seem like they're trying to say it's not multiple people in the same, Netflix account. 40.7 million household accounts have watched the show, in this first week since it's been out. Do you find that crazy at all, or do you think that it's not a big deal?
Okay, so is that number worldwide or is that country? Is that our country specifically? I don't know. It's hard to kind of gauge.
Global. They said global.
Okay. I mean, that's an impressive amount, especially for it being a holiday weekend in the United States. But Yeah.
Do you think the holiday weekend helps it more? I almost think it would.
I think that there's people that are out doing a lot of stuff for the 4th of July and 4th of July weekend. Or traveling and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
I don't think it hurts like that much, but I don't think that it made it like there was a lot of people who were like, "Oh, I've got 4th of July off. I better spend it watching Stranger Things." I think
that is what I did.
Yeah, I spent it getting hammered.
You can do both.
No, you can't.
You
No,
could.
you cannot. You need to watch the show.
I think that it's a perfect example of, they just put this number out there, 40.7 million. And even though they do say, that's the most in Netflix's history, it's breaking the record, because we don't get the big picture of like how many people watch Netflix a day or what people are watching and how many people are watching it. It's really hard to like understand what this number means, in accordance to their other shows or movies. So, I'm definitely on the train of Netflix just publicly releasing their statistics, but they never will. So just gotta die on that hill, I guess.
Huh. I wonder. It's like, it's good and it's bad at the same time, right? So many people are watching it, which makes me feel like I'm never going to get the end. There's never going to be an end. Because every time Netflix does anything, there's a cliffhanger. Anything, everything. They're like, this could potentially come back. And
yeah,
they have to do it subtly enough, though, to where it can also be the end if they don't get renewed.
Yeah, but how often do they actually do that?
I do actually think Stranger Things is a rare example where I know that the creators had said that they always wanted it to be a 4-season story, and after the first season, the success of the first season, they signed them up for 3 more seasons. So it's always been confirmed that there's going to be 4 seasons. Who knows if there will end up being more, but this is kind of, I think, the outlier of they know how long it is going to go, so they don't have to plan, 1 season at a time like most Netflix shows,
right?
And just assume they're coming back.
Yeah. I don't know. I am always going to be an advocate for things having an actual ending, like in the foreseeable future. That's part of the reason why I'm like turned off by the 7 more seasons of Rick and Morty announcement and stuff like that, because I'm like, God damn it. That means that the story points that they showed me so far are not going to resolve themselves for fucking 10 years.
Or they do, and then they just built even more upon that.
Yeah, probably, but who knows? But yeah, we can't get into spoilers because Zach didn't watch the whole fucking show. So. See it, play it, skip it. See it, play it,
see it, play it, skip it. Zach, what have you been seeing or playing?
Yeah,
this week?
Instead of watching Stranger Things.
Instead of watching Stranger Things, I've been watching the Great British Baking Show. And by watching, I should say that I've mainly just had it on in the background for a lot of my activities this week.
While he's been playing auto chess is what he means. While he's been playing fucking
not just
League.
that.
Wait, what is auto chess?
It's this game mode in League. I talked about it last week. It's addicting.
It's a strategy, yeah, but not just that. But yeah,
totally.
It's one of those shows that you can literally just throw in the background while you have to do something, and just have like noise going on, but at the same time be generally interested into it, and it just calms you down, settles you down. It's great. Highly recommend.
I have to admit, cooking shows are definitely like. There's a show on Netflix. I haven't really watched much of it, but it's called The Chef Show with Jon Favreau, and like. I can just put that on and be so relaxed. Like, cooking shows are like the best thing to watch in the background.
Yeah, I think food shows in general are great, but I think the best food show I've ever watched is Fuck That's Delicious with Action Bronson.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
He's a rapper, and him and like his crew go to different food places, and they're just fucking. Imagine rappers doing what Guy Fieri does. It's the same fucking shit. It's so funny.
I don't know.
It's on Hulu.
But Guy just has that certain persona that's so good.
Yeah, imagine that persona being a rapper. A big white fat rapper. Just a fucking man. Action Bronson is a fucking man.
All
right. What
So-
about me? Can I talk?
Yeah,
I
Isaiah.
wanna
What
be the
about you?
guy. What about me? So with all this talk about Stranger Things, I've seen a couple of reviews for this show called Dark. I haven't watched it yet, and I was gonna start it, but then I started watching anime again because my life is in shambles. But basically, the review that made me interested in telling you guys to check it out is people have been saying that Dark on Netflix is Stranger Thing for adults. So I don't know what that means, but that specific review has me interested in to find out what that means.
I haven't seen the show, but I remember when Dark, the first season, originally came out, there being a huge hype around it, and there being a relation to like, oh, if you like Stranger Things, watch this. And now I think the third season is out, and the hype has kind of died down for what I've seen, but I definitely remember people really liking it when it came out. But I believe it's German, so I think you either have to watch it dubbed or subtitled. So just I think be aware of that if you're going to watch it.
Nice. I'm going straight from anime to German television. I'm just going to be the most
Keep it going with the subtitles.
ridiculous person I know, dude. It's like, what are you
The
watching?
best is on Twitter. The best is on Twitter. People being like trying to one up each other. Like people being like, "There's no way you can watch the dub. You have to watch the subtitled." And then like the next people don't even watch the subtitles. Just look at their emotions.
Yeah, that's basically me telling people I watch anime. That anytime I'm like, yeah, the dub's not bad, everybody's just like, you have to watch sub. If you don't watch sub, you're obviously the scum of the earth. You fucking
Why
suck.
can't I enjoy it?
God.
Why can't I enjoy it in my own language?
I'm like, what if I just want them to hear? What if I just want to hear them say things in English? That's blasphemy. You're not a real anime watcher. Why don't you just go watch cartoons? Like, what do you mean? Shut the fuck up. You know what? I'm gonna call him out. Elijah, this is for you, buddy.
Oh God! Oh no! He called him out. That was something I heard got shamed for with my brother Devin watched that show Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
And he was like, he was telling me about it. I'm like, is there an English dub? And he like got so frustrated.
He's like, you have to watch it in Japanese. Their emotions are so much better. I'm like, I get the plot, bro. That's what it's all about. It's like,
Yeah.
I had to read an audiobook if they had multiple fucking voices in it. God damn. Yeah. So I guess I'm going to try to watch Dark, and if it's in German, that might be good, might be bad. I did take German at one point in my life, so. And then also, in the world, if you listened to my advice before and you're a PC gamer and you got Xbox Game Pass for $1, Shadow of War is free on there right now. I started the download yesterday, and it was like 150 gigs or some dumb shit. So,
Jeez.
yeah, it finished downloading while I was asleep, and I haven't got to play it yet, but I've heard amazing things about it, so I'm probably going to get into that after this, or during this if they don't have the arguments for the next part.
Oh,
I might put them to
right.
rest early. What about you, Josh? What have you seen?
Well, before I get into the movie reviews, I did over the weekend purchase Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, the Crash Bandicoot racing game that came out.
Yeah.
And I believe it's a remaster of two previous Crash Bandicoot racing games. I'm not sure. I never played Crash Bandicoot racing games growing up, but I think that this is a remaster. I got it for the Switch. Mostly just because I have zero room on my PS4. So I got it for the Switch, and I've been playing it, and it's actually really enjoyable. My biggest fear, really with any racing game, but this one as well, is that it was just going to be a cheap version of Mario Kart, right? Like, I don't want to play it and be like, well, I'd rather be playing Mario Kart. But I think it separates itself enough in like the features and the racing and the different type of game modes they have to where it is pretty enjoyable. They have an adventure mode rather than just like a Grand Prix. So you like go around the map and do. I don't know if you guys ever played Diddy Kong Racing for the N64, but it's kind of similar to that where you have like an open map and you go to different races. So I haven't played a ton of it, probably 4 or 5 hours worth, but it's been pretty fun so far.
Yeah, I used to play a lot of it when I was younger, and I thought about getting it for Switch, but something. I'm not in that racing game kind of move, especially a kart racer right now. So I'll have to check it out. I think Peter got it, so I might be able to throw down with him. But he's so good at Mario Kart that just sounds daunting.
Yeah.
And it's only $40 regardless of what system you get it on. So that was the other reason. Had it been full $60 game, probably would have waited on it and got it used eventually or something. But oh wait, did I just upset the gaming community by saying I'd get it used? Never mind.
You're killing gaming. Nani?
First of all, you say you listen to English dubs. Now you're saying you buy used games.
You are the scum of the earth. You are killing all industry. You are a millennial.
But anyway, yeah, I would say play it. I think if you're a fan of kart racers and you're a fan of Crash, I think it's definitely worth the $40. But jumping into the movie reviews, before we all get to talk about Spider-Man, I'm going to talk about the movie that I saw. Zach, you haven't seen it yet, correct?
Nope. We'll be seeing it very soon.
So this is going to be completely spoiler-free, so no worries there. I saw the movie Midsommar this past week.
Midsommar.
Sure. So,
Midsommar.
To give a little bit of background, the director of this film, Ari Aster, his debut film last year was Hereditary. If you're a regular listener of the podcast, you know that I really loved it. Zach really loved it as well. And Isaiah, you didn't really care for it that much. You thought it was okay, right?
Yeah, I thought it was alright.
So going into this film, just a year later, he's releasing his second movie. And to be honest, I tried to keep the hype down for myself going into it and the months leading up to it, but it's been very difficult. Probably because I follow A24 on Twitter and they just tweet out every good review about it. So that makes it kind of hard.
That could be it.
But obviously, Hereditary is my favorite movie last year, so obviously I'm going to have high expectations no matter what. The biggest thing I would say going into Midsommar is do not expect something similar to Hereditary. It's in almost no way the same even type of movie. The only things they really share is that you could consider them both in the horror genre, and the way that Ari Aster frames things and films his movies, I personally really love. Like the camera shots and the way he decides to shoot things, I find very, very interesting. And it's honestly probably my favorite part of Hereditary and of this movie as well, is how he directs. So I really loved that. The movie itself is the one word I would say is that it's challenging. It's a very challenging film to watch, from the disturbing imagery to the pace. The movie moves at like a slug's pace, so you really got to be paying attention. Obviously seeing it in the theater would help with that, but the movie is 2.5 hours long, and it feels 2.5 hours long. Yeah, so it's very challenging, not only from the aspect of trying to pay attention, because I was able to be invested in the movie. I was never bored or anything like that, although I did want it to kind of pick up a little faster. It's also challenging in just the way that it kind of makes you think. I don't want to call the movie pretentious, but I do feel like it's a little more pretentious than Hereditary. I feel like it's going to be very difficult for a lot of people to enjoy this movie. Because again, it's just very, like, after the movie ended, I almost thought that I hated it. And then after thinking about it over the last few days, it hasn't left my mind. Some of the, just like I said, the disturbing imagery, some of the things they say in the film that kind of leave you hanging, and a lot of the stuff that goes on, it really sticks with you. So I think if you go see this movie, you're probably not going to like it right away. And then you may eventually like it the more you think about it. I know I like this movie a lot more now than I did when I left the theater, but I still do not like it nearly as much as I loved Hereditary. Just to kind of get into some of my actual problems with the film, I already mentioned the length, but the other thing too is you have essentially the plot, again, no spoilers here, but you have a group of teenagers going to Sweden. There's this midsummer festival, and they're basically observing this culture from this small community, and then fucked up shit starts to happen. So that's kind of the plot of the film, and that's as far as I'll go. But they're not teenagers, like college students, young adults, but they all take a lot of drugs in the movie, both voluntarily and non-voluntarily. And because of that, they're all basically drugged up to the point where a lot of the time when crazy stuff is going on, you can't really get a true reaction because they're just drugged out of their minds. So they're just like, what the hell's going on? I've never done any type of drugs that put me in that state of mind. Maybe someone who has would have, more relation to that, but I didn't. And a lot of the stuff that I felt would be really interesting or cool to see, a lot of it happens off screen. So like something will happen that you won't see, and then you get told that it happened, or you get shown that it happened. You're like, what the hell? And it's like really disturbing or crazy, but you didn't get to see it happen. So, like I said, a very challenging movie. I don't think a lot of people are going to like this movie. I don't even know if I like it necessarily, but like I said, my biggest positive I can give to it is that I haven't stopped thinking about it, and there's some emotions I got from it that really have stayed with me since I saw the movie. So it's a really hard movie to talk about without getting into spoilers. So Zach, when you see it, I'm going to be really excited to talk to you about it in depth. But I would not recommend any casual moviegoer to go see this in theaters.
Gotta be experience.
If you're someone who really likes horror, or like really likes like slow, storytelling based on like mythology and like stuff like that, this might be up your alley. But it was hard for me to watch the film for the 2.5 hours. It's difficult. But I wouldn't say it's a skip it. I would say it's a see it. It's just whether you think you could go see it in theaters, or you want to wait until you can rent it eventually when you're at home and can watch it at your leisure. Maybe in 2 or 3 sittings instead of all at once. But that's basically my spoiler-free review of Midsommar.
Okay. That sounds interesting. But you bring up a good point. So, I was thinking about this yesterday, and I want to talk about it before we talk about Spider-Man. Do you think that it's weird that we'll complain that a movie is 2.5 hours, but then we will also not bat an eye and watch 8 hours of Stranger Things in a row?
So, I don't think it's weird, because I think it's the structure of a movie versus the structure of a TV show. A movie is, in most of the time, made for you to watch in one sitting. So like even like with a long movie like Midsommar, where you break it up and watch it over a few days, it is technically meant for you to watch in one sitting, which can be tough if something's 2.5 hours.
Right.
With say Stranger Things, for example, it is meant to be watched even if you binge it. The individual episodes are structured like not assuming that you're going to continue watching it. So every episode has its own individual satisfying arc that leaves you satisfied with watching that episode, and then usually ends with a cliffhanger, which leaves you wanting more. I feel like in movies, there's not that small individual payoff throughout the movie. You have to watch the whole thing for that payoff. And a lot of times the payoff isn't great. So it's tough to compare that to binging 8 hours, because you get those small little payoffs in between.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I guess that makes sense, but I just always find it's weird because we always talk about length, but I guess it's more about pace of the movie. Like if there was more general payoff throughout the movie, like you said, this one felt like 2 hours, but comparative to Endgame, which was 3 hours, and the first part of it might have felt like it was long, but the second part of it didn't feel like as long as it should have been. I think that it's interesting that it's more of a complaint about pace and these individual payoffs than it is really about the length of a movie.
Absolutely. And for example, no spoilers, but like Isaiah, you'll know what I'm talking about. The last episode of season 3 of Stranger Things is, I think, an hour and 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's like hour 17.
That's basically a feature-length film, almost. But there's no way that you could start a movie where the last episode of Stranger Things starts, right? So the last episode, even though it's the length of a movie, it doesn't feel that long because you start in the third act. You start at the climax. So I think that plays a big difference. That's a great example you bring up with Endgame. I could probably watch Endgame twice in a row, and it wouldn't feel as long as this movie.
That would be a wild choice of things to do. Because what are you doing today? I'm going to watch Endgame back to back. Why? I don't know. Okay.
Can I join?
Yeah. So it was interesting to me that you said that it felt like 2.5 hours because we'll talk about it more whenever we start talking about Spider-Man. But there was times when I was like, this movie is only 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking that it could have. It's all about pace more, I guess, than it is about like the actual number when it boils down to it. Unless you're somebody who is like, I have to pee every 2.5 hours. So if this is over 2 hours, then we're gonna have a problem. But like for me, that number is pretty arbitrary, minus the point of I have to plan my life around going somewhere for 3 hours.
Yeah. So, and one last thing on Midsommar. I said this about Jordan Peele when I was talking about Us last week. I'll say this with Ari Aster because it's even more true. I have to respect him. Like Hereditary in this movie, they're not, you cannot watch any other movies that are going to be similar to this. They're a completely unique experience when you watch them. And I have to respect that. And the fact that whatever he makes next, I am going to go see, because even though I didn't like Midsommar as much as I loved Hereditary, it's still an experience that I know I'm not going to see another movie like that for the rest of this year. I'm just not, there's just nothing out
like
there.
you even said, like how he has the unique camera angles and like that, how he can provoke that sense of like nervousness and like uneasiness in you. Like, no, those don't come like very often, and being able to actually like see those, like, hopefully, I don't know if he'll keep this every year sort of thing up, but knowing just the fact that someone's out there still creating those movies, that's really good.
Another question.
And one more. Oh, go ahead.
This is a kind of off-related question, so if you want to go ahead, and then I'll get it at the end.
Oh, yeah. I know I already said one last thing, but this is the last thing because I have to mention it. The score is freaking amazing. The way the opening credits start is like what's the expression called? Your heart's in your throat, or your stomach's in your throat. Like the music, the way it comes in, the way they start the opening credits, I was like had chills. The music is so good. So I do have to say, after you watch the movie, you may find yourself listening to the soundtrack if you're that kind of person like myself, because it's amazing. But go ahead, Isaiah.
So, Zach will probably be able to answer this. Isn't there like a legend or a creepy guy with the last name Astor, or is that specifically from the Black Tapes?
I'm trying to even think of what you're talking about in the Black Tapes.
Because every time he says Ari Aster, I'm pretty sure that there's somebody in either the Black Tapes or in some sort of lore with the last name Astor. And I cannot remember who it is.
I can't think of it off the top of my head.
So this guy might be a fucking cult member from the Black Tapes.
It's just really like based along that. Which, I don't know. I haven't checked in a back or not.
Okay, well, I guess I'll have to listen to the whole Black Tapes all over again to find out.
Do it.
And then report back to this podcast. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The final movie of the phase. The Spider-Man Far From Home. We're going to go spoiler-free first, right, Josh? That's always our good call.
Yeah, we'll go spoiler-free. We'll announce it before we go into spoilers.
All right. Let's kick it off with the person I know who's going to have the most problems with the movie, Zach.
Hey,
What'd you
I didn't
think?
have any problems with it.
Wow.
That was good.
That was amazing. I figured that Zach would have been like, but I didn't really like it. I'm Zach.
No, I liked it. I don't... Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Same. That's exactly what
No.
That's all Zach can say. Spoiler free.
Yeah. I don't want to get too much into it because the only thing I really have to say about it, I guess, is somewhat in the way that the story's told, and I don't want to bring that up yet.
Okay.
All right. What about you, Josh? What'd you think about it?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. Let's keep this short. Spoiler free. I loved it. I love the movie.
That's what I'm saying. I fucking loved it. I was like, I came out and I was like, God damn it, I love Spider-Man.
Spoiler free. I don't think it could really have been any better for what they were trying to do. Both, coming after Endgame, in the sense that you have to kind of start fresh, but it's the end of Phase 3, so you're still kind of like wrapping things up as well. It kind of put it in a tough spot, but I thought it flourished. And one thing I really have to commend, is that on the marketing side, and you can really only do this because you're the 23rd movie or 22nd movie or whatever in the MCU, so everyone's going to see your movie anyway. But on the marketing side, almost everything from the trailers is from like the first half of the movie, and then the second half is completely different. So I really respect their restraint and not spoiling what happens in the film, because if you've only seen the trailers and don't know anything about the movie, the second act not the second act, but the second half just comes out of nowhere basically and is really good. So that's what I'll say, spoiler free. Also, there is a mid and a post credit sequence. I think the mid-credit sequence is probably the best one in the MCU thus far. It should have just been the end of the movie, but they probably just felt they needed a mid-credit scene, so they just chopped it off and put it in the middle of the credits.
Yeah,
but I really like both of them.
I came up with a theory today while I was at work, and I forgot to message you guys about it. I think that the reason why it wasn't the end of the movie and why it was the mid-credit scene is because the people that are in the in the credits before that scene are probably the people from Disney who had to actually work with Sony to get that specifically as good as it was. You know what I mean?
I got you.
Because I think the very first name you see in the credits is Kevin Feige. And then, I don't know a lot of people in the movies, but I assume that all of the people that were there were basically like the ones who were manning the ship for Sony and being like, hey, this is what we got to do.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming with that. That does make sense. So Isaiah, anything from you spoiler free you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think I absolutely love the movie. I think that all of the actors, all of the big name actors, and even the supporting cast who aren't really considered big names at this point, all did fantastic jobs. I think that some of the parts of the score that I remember I'm pretty fond of. And I mean, it's a Marvel movie, so they get all the things right that other superhero movies don't, right? It's well lit. You can see all the things. There's like plenty of stuff. Like I said, it's going to be tough to not be spoiler, but absolutely love the movie. I probably would see it again if anybody asked me. I will put it here. It is not the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen. That still goes to Into the Spider-Verse.
Sure, yeah.
But like actual live-action Spider-Man movies, it's pretty up there for me. I would say it might be the top, but I would have to rewatch some Spider-Man movies that are in question.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to say it's my favorite just because it's so fresh. And I just saw it last week, but it's up there for me for Spider-Man live action. Spider-Verse is something completely unique and deserves its own category and is amazing. But Far From Home it's definitely up there for me, and it's going to make my argument later in this episode much more difficult. But I think it's safe to jump into spoilers here. So there's time codes down below. We're going to be arguing who is the best Spider-Man after this discussion, so you can jump to those time codes. Hopefully I have not been lazy and have put them there. And we're going to jump into spoilers now. So if you're not seeing Spider-Man Far From Home, stop the podcast.
There you go. That's your warning.
So what do you guys want to talk about from the
film? Can we talk about how Zendaya's MJ is my favorite love interest of Spider-Man across the board, even including Gwen in Spider-Verse? Like, she's the fucking best. I love her. Whenever she gets the Black Dahlia and it's broken and she's like, I like it broken, I'm like, I love this movie.
She's just so edgy.
I know, it's exactly what we need.
I can agree with you there, but for me the best romance of the movie was his friend, I can't think of his name, Jacob, I think, is the actor's name? I can't remember. His friend and his girlfriend that he gets on the plane to Europe, and how he's talking about the whole time that he's going to be this bachelor in Europe, and then they become a couple on the plane and spend the whole movie as a couple. And they're just like the most like typical high school, like cringy, couple ever, and it's just brilliant. It's so great.
It's so good.
And then it ends. Literally when they get back.
Yeah, they get back and it's just over, and they're both okay with it, and I'm just like, God damn it. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, a lot of relationships could learn from that.
I also like that they. I like the way that they handled this romantic competition for Peter Parker, and I think the guy's name was Ben.
Yes.
I like that they were like they set it up, and they like in the first act they made it seem like, oh shit, Peter actually has some sort of like competition, and then throughout the movie they kind of resolved it to her kind of being like not interested in him at all, but just kind of being generally a person towards him. Well, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like it wasn't like Peter Parker or Spider-Man had to do anything like crazy to impress her, other than just kind of be like, talk about my feelings. And I think that was probably one of the things that really got me, because like whenever she leaves like the opera house to like find out where he's going and stuff like that, and I was like, oh shit. So she's like really not into him because she like had the opportunity to sit next to him and all that kind of shit. All I'm saying is I'm so excited for more Zendaya in this fucking universe. I think that the relationship between those two characters is the reason why I will continue to watch the MCU.
God.
A bond stronger than my actual like for superhero movies.
And what you brought up, Isaiah, with the Ben character leads into one of my other favorite things about the film.
Same.
Is how they handle the post snap when everyone, or they call it the blip.
They finally give an explanation to it and how they handle it.
The opening of the film with them doing the school news show, and there's like the slideshow of all the dead Avengers.
It was so funny, dude.
The one kid talks about how his he blipped and then he came back and now his younger brother is older than him. I thought that was hilarious.
I love that, like the pictures they used for the superheroes. It was like a really low quality picture of Vision.
Yeah.
And then the last image in the slideshow is just a stock image from Getty Images. There's 5 people in the theater. I went and saw it at noon on a Saturday. There's nobody there. I'm just fucking laughing my ass off and just like, I don't give a damn. Who's going to care? These 3 other people in this theater? But yeah, I thought that was so funny. And then, oh, dude, the scene wherever, like, I think he gets to Europe and they have to search his bag. And the TSA, whatever that would be in Europe, is like opens it up and the Spider-Man costume is in there, and she doesn't care because it's actually the banana she's worried about. Got me again. I was like, Jesus Christ, this stupid humor is killing me. I fucking love it. It's so good.
What about the little romance between his aunt and
Happy?
Happy?
I fucking love Happy, bro. It's so funny. I think that like throughout the movie, what you get to see of Happy and Aunt May, right? That's her name?
Yes.
Is so funny. And then at the end, whenever Tom Holland sits them down and they're like going to talk about what's going on between you two, and they just don't know. I thought that was fucking great. So good, dude. Oh, man. Okay, now that we've talked about all the things that aren't related to the actual part of the movie.
The plot of the movie, yeah.
What did you guys think of Mysterio?
I don't know how close that was to the comics. Josh, you know anything on that? Like how?
From what I've heard, it was pretty similar. Obviously, they've updated the technology as far as like his illusions with drones and everything like that. But from what I've heard from people, not being a comic reader myself, I think they played it pretty accurately.
All right, then that makes it a little bit better. The only thing I would have to complain about, and it's not even really a complaint, but it felt like it was super like Iron Man 3 to me in the sense of like this same route as this villain who's supposed to be like all powerful, then turns out to like do technology to essentially use his powers. Like I felt like just pretty much like a redo on something that's already been done in the MCU. But knowing now that this is like actually how Mysterio was, that makes it a little bit better for me.
I think that one of the things that is one of like the things that was brought up to my attention after the movie that is really important is Mysterio, and I don't know what his actual name is outside of being Mysterio, is the fallout of Iron Man and Tony Stark. Like, basically, it's what's happening is Spider-Man is just being set up to have to deal with the bullshit that it was behind the Iron Man-esque thing. Like, all of these people, I'm pretty sure that Vulture was the same way. All of the people that were on his team were all Stark employees and all this kind of shit. It's kind of like Spider-Man, it has to deal with all of the shit that Tony left. Not just fulfilling the role of being the next Iron Man, but also dealing with all of the things that he's done to all of the people he treated poorly. Like, whenever they go into the scene about how his life work was nicknamed Barf or something like that, and and all that is basically, I think that is super cool. And another thing that was brought to my attention is, and this is, I guess I'm just going to keep jumping all around, but we have no confirmation on like the villains in the Spider-Man movies dying. So it could be setting up for eventually what is the Sinister Six movie, which I've heard would be lit, but also I don't read comics, so coming from an uninterested...
Yeah, so a couple things on what you said. First, with talking about Mysterio, his character's name I think was Quentin Beck, but I loved Jake Gyllenhaal in the first half of the movie. I was like, okay, he's playing this pretty seriously, the superhero role. He's doing his thing. But then when unfortunately, I have to admit, it is a bit expositional, a bit plot dumpy. But the scene where he, has his heel turn and reveals he's a villain, he just went full into what I had hoped Jake Gyllenhaal was going to do in the role. And that's just like, just full on, committed to it, crazy. And he makes valid points. And that's what makes a villain good, right? When you don't agree with what they're doing, but you agree with the motives behind it. And Isaiah, you brought it up with the whole Tony Stark thing. One of Kevin Feige's best traits is that he rewards you for watching the MCU. And that scene with him creating that technology and Tony using it, that's, the introduction scene for Tony Stark in Captain America Civil War, is him using that technology, explaining it, and then being like, oh yeah, I called it barf, and then throwing it away. And when you watch Civil War and that never comes up again, it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of odd that they just used that technology. And I'm not claiming that they planned that all the way back then, but it does reward you for watching Civil War and now watching this movie and being like, oh shit, he was there, he made that, you know what I mean?
Correlations.
Yeah, and then it also showed the clip from the first Iron Man with Jeff Bridges yelling at the technician and being like, Tony Stark built this in a cave, and that guy being the same actor from the first Iron Man. He was like literally a nobody in that movie in Iron Man.
Yeah.
So,
fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say. Keep going.
I was going to say the second point that you said, one of the greatest things I loved about Homecoming is that they did not kill Michael Keaton as the Vulture. He just goes to prison. And I feel like the MCU's biggest problem is that they kill their villains after one movie. And unfortunately, and you could be right, Isaiah, but it does seem like he is, he looks pretty clearly dead at least, as far as Mysterio. And I'm really hoping that he's not, and that they stop killing their villains, because you look at the ones like Loki and Thanos and the ones that take multiple movies to kill, they always end up being better villains because they had that time, to grow and everything like that. So I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, I think that's why, like, we got that kind of like low-key cop-out where, like, Spider-Man doesn't ask Edith if he's dead, or she doesn't answer that he's dead. She answers that there are no more illusions or shit like that. So kind of like it gives you that like little tidbit of like, oh, I guess if I think about it hard enough, he could possibly not be dead. But there's a lot of little things that if you like paid attention, like there's a lot of things where if I didn't see this movie in theaters, I would have missed them. Because I just know how I am when it comes to watching movies at home. And one of the things that I'm super interested in how it goes from here is the guy who's in charge for like the main illusion. And I think what happens is he like, after Mysterio is dying or in that fight, he like gets basically what looked like a USB drive and something is uploaded to it. And I think it could possibly be their explanation on how that video like gets to that mid-credit scene, but also it could be literally anything. You know what I mean? Like, so that's interesting to me. I think that the CGI on the elementals was like good. If you then consider that it was supposed to be like CGI of CGI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, and that was another thing. I was listening to a review of it today. Actually, Funhouse, the group I keep talking about every week. They did a full podcast on the movie, and they were talking about they love that they had what's the actor's name that plays Mysterio? I just heard it and I forgot.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal. They love that they had Jake Gyllenhaal act as he was being a bad actor whenever he was like because he was like really over the top as Mysterio before his heel turn.
Yeah.
And that's what they were saying. They were like, oh man, I hope that Jake didn't like fumble this one. But then whenever that heel turn happens and he makes that like full turn to this evil mastermind, that you like actually get to see he was acting like a bad actor or like somebody who would be a superhero would be. And I think that is like an amazing strength that I didn't even understand that Jake Gyllenhaal really had until I saw this movie. I think that I think that was one of the most dope parts was after listening to the review and like him and actually it being pointed out and of him like basically being over the top and trying to like be friends with Spider-Man and all that kind of stuff was kind of like cheesy. Then you realize like, oh yeah, he's fucking evil and actually a really good actor.
Yeah, and that was probably my two favorite parts of the movie is when you first find out he's a villain and he like takes down the illusion and he's like, get this stupid suit off me. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, it's going down. And then at the end when he's like his last illusion where he's trying to pretend like he's reaching out, to Peter, and then he goes to shoot him and Peter catches either catches the gun or catches the bullet, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, he like catches his wrist and like points the gun away from him. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wish the movie was basically at a max length I think it would be for a standalone movie like this, but I would have loved a better explanation on the spiders, why his spider sense wasn't really working. Maybe it's like again, Funhouse brought up, then I think that's what made me really think about it is like I guess he could still be like getting like to the full extent of his powers. And I love that they never called it Spidey Sense. They called it the Peter Tingle.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh man, that sexual innuendo. The rest of the movie's gonna fuck me up. I'm glad there's no little kids here for me to giggle every time he says Peter Tingle.
His a great erectile dysfunction metaphor throughout the film.
Yeah. But I would say, I mean, we could go all day on this movie, but I would say that my favorite scene that is not a romance scene between MJ and Peter Parker had to be when Happy like lands the jet and Peter's building the new suit and Happy's just looking at Peter because like he's like, God damn it, this guy is the next Iron Man. I was like, I'm fucking dying. This is so cute. I want to die.
That was a really good scene.
And then he plays AC/DC's Back in Black and Peter's like, I love Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Zach, anything else from you?
No, nothing else. That's pretty much everything.
So obviously we all recommend it. Hopefully if you've listened to this far, it's because you've already seen it. So let us know what you guys thought of Far From Home. I feel like such a basic bitch. My two favorite films of the year so far, number one being Endgame and number two being Spider-Man Far From Home. But fuck it. It is what it is.
That's what happens when you have fucking infinite money to make movies.
Yeah.
and the algorithm on how to make them very likable.
All right, so I guess now we can jump into our main topic. So today we're going to be discussing / arguing / trying to convince each other who is the best Spider-Man. Now the parameters for this is that it had to be a live-action Spider-Man. So Spider-Verse, unfortunately, I think at least two of us, I think, would have chosen that Spider-Man, or at least one of the Spider-Men from that movie. But we are not including that. We are including the live-action Peter Parker Spider-Man films. So we are going to basically go. I think the best way to do this, we can go through, we can each present, our opening, say who we decided and what we liked about them. And then once we've all said our picks, we can just argue about it. So whoever's comfortable with going first, go ahead with your pick and kind of we'll go from there.
I'll pick it up because I'm going to put a limitation on myself also. So I am choosing the Tom Holland Spider-Man. I think he's the best, but I'm also going to limit myself to exclude Zendaya from the consideration because she could be just the deciding factor on why it is. But I think Tom Holland Spider-Man is easily the best. I love the way, I love his American accent, which is weird because he's British, right? So, when he actually talks,
yeah,
I'm always baffled, and I love that he nails it so good. Just being a kid from the Bronx, man. Or is it Queens? I don't fucking remember.
He's from Queens.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that it's just so well done, and, they haven't really had a cringe-worthy movie like the other two have, but we'll get into it. So I'm the Tom Holland advocate.
All right,
who wants to go next?
I'll go next. I am the Andrew Garfield advocate here, trying to talk up the Amazing Spider-Man series, which I think started in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. It was essentially the series right before the Tom Holland Spider-Man series. And yeah, we'll see if we can talk this bad boy up.
Okay, and so obviously you figured out that by default, my pick is Tobey Maguire from the original Sam Raimi trilogy of Spider-Man movies. So I guess I'll just go into it a little bit here since I'm the last one to reveal my pick. So reason I love Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, I think it's very important for the sake of this argument to not blame or reward the actors for the movies that they're in, because Tobey Maguire, he got to be in 2 amazing Spider-Man movies and then a pretty bad one in Spider-Man 3. Andrew Garfield got to be in my opinion, a decent one and then a terrible second one. And then Tom Holland has been in nothing but amazing ones. So it's hard to blame or reward the actors for that. I think we have to push all that to the side and just focus on why they had the best performance as Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And I would say, just as my first point, Tobey Maguire, while he does suffer from the early 2000s, everybody looks like they're 30 years old, but they're supposed to be in high school. I'll grant you that.
You can't get rid of that, though.
I mean, Tom Holland and even Andrew Garfield at least could pull off. I mean, Tom Holland, I think, was a teenager at first, and Andrew Garfield at least could pull it off. But Tobey looks like he's 26 years old in the first Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But what I'll say to that is that he's the only one out of these 3 that I would believe is not the most popular kid in their high school. Andrew Garfield is a freaking model, and Tom Holland is also pretty good looking. So Tobey is the only one in the first Spider-Man, at least, that when you first see him in that opening and he's chasing the school bus, you can believe that he is a nerd, before becoming Spider-Man.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but you got to think about it like this, man. Nerd culture is different now, bro. This Spider-Man adheres to the 2019 nerddom. Not all nerds are just gross dudes anymore, G.
Yeah, man. Look at Andrew Garfield.
You better chill out with Andrew Garfield, bro. He's looking like freaking. He looks like Steve Harrington from fucking Stranger Things ass Spider-Man.
They do look pretty similar, but
Yeah.
I'll
bring it up.
I'll say I do think Zach has the toughest argument here because of the movies Andrew Garfield is in. So, Zach, what is it about Andrew Garfield's performance that you did like more than the other 2?
I think he just brought a different, not the traditional sort of Spider-Man Peter Parker role that you normally see it with. Tobey, I guess, did the straight up pure nerd sort of representation of Peter Parker, where it tried to give the Andrew Garfield Peter Parker a little bit more of freedom, just to do whatever with it. He still had that nerdy culture with it, but he took it more in the scientific route, which is always really good.
Yeah. I think that while that might be true, I think that Tom Holland, and I guess that this is going into the movie specifically, but I think that Tom Holland Spider-Man actually gets like the aspect of Peter Parker is actually a smart kid who then gets spider powers and like nails that down. You know what I mean? Comparative to Tobey Maguire, there's really no show that he's a Spider-Man. That he's a smart kid. He's just a guy with spider powers, and I think that Andrew Garfield falls the same there. And like you said, that's movie related. Like that's how he's written. And I think with Tom Holland, the thing that I like specifically more than Andrew Garfield is the Andrew Garfield, like anything that Andrew Garfield does that is kind of mean in the movie instantly gets portrayed as Spider-Man as a bully due to the fact that he is such an attractive man that you would just assume anyone that attractive does anything mean to anyone, he's bullying them. I'm like, that guy's a bully because he's way hotter than I am. But if Tom Holland was to do mean shit to me, I'd be like, shut up, twerp.
My biggest problem with Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man is, first of all, and this isn't necessarily his fault, but he's in the age of like Spider-Man already being a thing in movies. So like he doesn't get to do the Spider-Man beats, right? Like we don't see his origin when he shows up in Civil War, let alone his own movie. But Civil War, before that, he already has his powers. Uncle Ben is already dead. And in his first movie, there really isn't an MJ. You don't find out Zendaya is MJ until the end of the movie, and there's really no romantic interest there in the first movie. So he really doesn't get a ton of those Spider-Man beats that I think make Spider-Man so great. You know, the process of seeing him go through learning how to use his powers. I mean, his bigger problem is more so learning how to juggle being Spider-Man and Peter Parker, which is done well, but he's already basically mastered how to do the webs and how to swing around and all that type of stuff by the first time we see him in Civil War. The second thing is my biggest problem with the newest iteration of Spider-Man is that I do not like a lot of his suits because we're in the age of CGIing everything, so his suit a lot of the time looks like a cartoon. And Tobey Maguire's suit and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man suits I thought looked great, and you could actually believe that they were in them because there were so many times in the movies where like their masks would be ripped partially and you would see their faces, during these battles. So I love the suits much more in both Tobey's and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Mans, over Tom Holland's.
Yeah, and I think that your point could go both ways depending on the way that you view the argument. Because there's people that will enjoy the Tom Holland Spider-Man due to the fact that they didn't have to go through these beats of okay, we get it. He was bit by a spider. He got his spider powers. He learned how to swing on webs. He fell in love with a girl who has red hair. It's like, or Gwen. And it's like, so I think that it's like, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it can't really be an argument against him due to the fact that like since if Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies didn't exist, there would have been room for Tom Holland's Spider-Mans to re-explain Spider-Man because it had been long enough. But so that's the fact that in between Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland, there was Andrew Garfield re-explaining how Spider-Man got his powers 3 years later would have been fucking dumb. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree that no one would have wanted to see a third origin story of Spider-Man.
Right.
So I get why they did that, but it still doesn't hide the fact that 20, 30 years from now, if no one saw Maguire's or Garfield's Spider-Man, they're going to be like, how did Tom Holland get his powers?
20, 30 years
maybe.
from now, Tom Holland will be fucking as old as Robert Downey Jr. And people they would probably have already rebooted Spider-Man as Spider-Girl or some other thing.
Yeah, you're right.
But,
okay, all right, you're right. Help me out here, Zach.
He can't because Andrew Garfield ain't got nowhere to speak on this field. I'm just taking down Tobey Maguire. Is Zach even here?
I'm going to be honest. I was so into Andrew Garfield going into this, and the more I researched into it and more
Zach has disappeared.
The greatest.
Oh, there he is. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Who'd you say was the greatest?
Andrew Garfield is not the greatest. Let's just put it that way. As someone who took him to start, I was like, all right, I am a diehard Andrew Garfield Spider-Man person. And then researching it, realizing he is nowhere close, to be honest.
I just love that in the second Amazing Spider-Man movie, they were like teasing next villain, and they're like, you're gonna have to see the next movie, and then he just got fucking ripped away from him. Yeah. Just like, oh damn. But
my favorite Andrew Garfield Spider-Man story is that he didn't show up to some type of press conference because he was growing a beard for another movie, and he was embarrassed to show up with a beard, so he just didn't show up.
That's funny.
That makes it a little bit better.
All I'm saying...
But like, Josh, you described it so well in the beginning. Like, the first movie was average, which I can probably say average is a good way to explain all of the first Spider-Man movies across the board. And the second one is really where you have to figure out if it went good or if it went bad. And The Amazing Spider-Man 2 just was probably one of the worst Spider-Man films there is.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely true. And I would say, yeah, probably Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Tom Holland's first Spider-Man were probably about the same. But yeah, that second Andrew Garfield Spider-Man was, that one was a tough one.
Yeah, so Tom Holland's 15 minutes of screen time in Civil War is probably better than Amazing Spider-Man 2, but...
yeah. I looked up all of the IMDb's and the Rotten Tomatoes scores. I was like, all right, I have to find some positive statistic, and they was last in all of those across the board. Yeah, it was just bad. The only thing that I could say positively about it was that Emma Stone won the award for favorite movie actress, but it was for the Kids' Choice Awards.
Oh, oof!
Yeah,
that was about it.
I was gonna say though, actually, if I was, and Isaiah's gonna get triggered by this, but if I was ranking the romances of the three Spider-Men,
whoa!
I'd have to put Tom Holland at the bottom because him and Zendaya, while Far From Home, really started to expand on that. Like I said previously, we didn't get anything in Homecoming. And is there really any more iconic Spider-Man scene ever than Tobey Maguire kissing Kirsten Dunst upside down? I mean, that's like the most iconic, probably one of the most iconic movie scenes of the 21st century, period. So it's hard to... and they had such a strong relationship throughout all three movies, even the third bad one. Even Andrew Garfield in Amazing Spider-Man 2, that movie was garbage, but he still had chemistry with Emma Stone because they were dating in real life. And then he kills her. But...
I'm gonna let you finish, but let's be real. Okay, while the upside down kissing scene with Kirsten Dunst might be iconic, you know what is more infamous than that will ever be famous? Finger guns Tobey Maguire, and you know that was a Tobey Maguire decision. There wasn't a single writer in that writer's room who thought, yeah, he should probably do finger guns as Spider-Man. You know that shit. Somebody wrote that upside down kissing scene. Tobey Maguire did finger guns, emo hair, fucking bullshit. You know it. You're lucky that I'm not talking about Zendaya, because I'm not going to do it, because I would totally defend my choice here, but it's fine.
I can agree with Josh's choice here because there hasn't been enough time for a romance to like accumulate. Like it was a little bit rushed in this one, but
I don't know, man. I think that scene on the bridge whenever he's all right. I get to talk about it. This is bullshit. You guys gonna attack my girl like that?
we can't talk about spoilers about the movie.
Oh yeah, you're right. That scene where they do the thing on the thing with the thing. That shit was wild.
I got you, but the one thing I'll say in defense of the finger guns is that
there is no defending the finger guns.
Tobey Maguire knew how ridiculous that movie was going to be, and you can tell by that scene. And what is the most iconic scene from that movie? It's the finger gun scene. It's when he's walking down the street dancing. It's the best scene of the movie, and the movie is garbage, but that's the best part, and that was all Tobey. Tobey.
No, he shot those finger guns and just thought to himself immediately, I made that scene.
Yeah, he literally finger guns his career away, bro. What do you mean? I don't know. All I'm saying is maybe we haven't had enough time with Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but I highly doubt he will ever do anything as cringy as Tobey Maguire's finger gun scene. And I cannot think that you think that is the best scene from that movie.
From Spider-Man 3, name me a better scene from that garbage ass movie.
I can't watch the whole thing because it's so bad.
There are some people who would defend Spider-Man 3. There are a couple of good moments, but no, it's pretty bad. But I just have to point out, though, and we've been talking mostly, I feel like you've been basing your argument off of the 2 Spider-Man movies, but if you do include Civil War and the 2 Avengers movies he's been in, Tom Holland is actually the most veteran Spider-Man of all 3, being in 5 movies, 2 Tobey Maguire's 3 and Andrew Garfield's 2. I think it says something about Tobey Maguire's performance that Tom Holland does not feel like the most veteran Spider-Man. I felt like in Far From Home, he's still getting into his own as Peter Parker, and he does a good job in Far From Home, but he's still getting there. I felt like by the end of Spider-Man 1, that Tobey Maguire, I was like, this is it. This dude is Peter Parker. This dude is Spider-Man. And I feel like to this day, if someone's our age or older, there's a great chance they're going to like Tobey Maguire's more, even though there's some nostalgia attached to it. I'll agree to that. But
this is my point. The 5-second scene with Tom Holland and Brie Larson in Endgame made me. It snapped away the rest of the Spider-Mans forever.
I'm
Peter Parker.
Can we count those in?
He just brought them up. I have to count them in now.
Damn it,
yeah, we can.
I think
we can because it's fair. He was in them.
I think that was easily like. I was like, there is no other Spider-Man for me. When Tom Holland had his interaction with Captain Marvel, I was like, that's it. There is no other Spider-Man. This is my Spider-Man. # not my Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire.
All right, well, I think that bringing up the Avengers movies was probably a mistake on my part, but let's move on.
There's just so much to talk about.
Bro, what you mean? Tobey Maguire didn't make no sorts of money like Tom Holland did, bro. Big baller status.
But imagine the hype even to this day if they somehow found a way to rope in Tobey Maguire for like a cameo or something in the Spider-Man films. People would still go crazy. People loved Tobey, but I'll say my closing thoughts here, and then we can go around and wrap it up. I do agree, Tom Holland is a great Peter Parker. I just don't know if he's a great Spider-Man at this point. Maybe it's the CGI, but I feel like whenever he's in the suit, I just can't buy that it's Tom Holland. I just feel like it's a CGI cartoon Spider-Man. And that's not all his fault, but I feel like when Tobey Maguire played Spider-Man, obviously he had a stunt double in the suit or whatever, but I genuinely felt that was Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker in that suit, and I just felt like he was the perfect combination of the Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I'll give Tom Holland Peter Parker. He's the best Peter Parker. I just don't know if he's the best Spider-Man, and that's why I go with Tobey. And Andrew is just a model. He doesn't count.
Yeah, now that we've put Andrew Garfield to rest.
Yeah.
Even our own
Garfield, you have some other good movies, but I'm not going to say that the Amazing Spider-Man series are 2 of them.
While you might be right about Tobey Maguire being an iconic Spider-Man, I think that Tom Holland Spider-Man is the Spider-Man for me, the techie that is in me, and I'm like, oh man, I love the Iron Spider suit. I love that, all of the like cool tech that he gets and all that kind of stuff. Like that was probably one of the best parts about the Spider-Man game for me, was all the tech. And I don't remember any of that tech really being in the Spider-Man 1 and 2 with Tobey Maguire. I don't know. I think that there's a reason other than age that Tobey Maguire wasn't continued to be Spider-Man. And maybe it was just Spider-Man 3. 1/3 of what he might be known for is kind of bad. That's weird because my boy's got 5 movies he's in, and I could say easily there isn't 1/3 of them I wouldn't rewatch. So I'm going to have to say Tom Holland still. He's still the best Spider-Man. I think that you're letting nostalgia cloud your judgment. When was the last time you saw Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3?
Unfortunately, I saw 3 a couple, not too long ago on TV. I watched the first 2 a couple years ago, and I'll say I liked Homecoming was my favorite Spider-Man movie before Far From Home came out and Spider-Verse came out. But we're not talking about the movies. We're talking about the performances. Zach?
I have to say this. One thing that a deciding factor between Tom Holland for me and Maguire is the cringiness, or like like Peter Parker, that nerdy guy, that nerdy kid in school, typical, does cringy things, stuff like that. with Maguire, it was truly cringing to where you're just like, ugh. At least with Tom Holland, it's played off in a sense of like humorous and like embarrassment. So like you're like, oh, I've done that too, but like it just feels better compared to Maguire's cringiness of some of the things he does in the movie.
But life is dark and depressing. And high school sucks.
Not in Disneyland.
Yeah, Disneyland,
All right.
Everything is great.
Well, I guess we'll leave it at that. We're gonna put up a Twitter poll after you guys listen to this episode. Just let us know who you think is going to be the winner of this argument. I'm still going to include Zach, even though he gave up halfway through. But I'm not going to put who we said is the best. I'm only going to put our names so that hopefully there's a better chance of them actually reacting to our arguments. But I did put up a poll today so we can kind of compare the pre-poll and the post-poll. I put up a poll today on Hooligan_radio. Follow us on Twitter. I said, who is the best live-action Peter Parker Spider-Man? With 70% of the vote, Tom Holland.
Yeah. That's what, even without my retweet telling all my fans to vote. That's what I'm saying, bro.
20% Tobey Maguire, 10% Andrew Garfield. So obviously, me and Zach had a lot of ground to make up, but maybe one of us could have won some people over. So vote.
I'm pretty sure I've vacated the.
Yeah,
my drawing for
his 10%. His 10% was his mom was like, I know Zach's gonna pick Garfield.
You got a Twitter now. This is great.
So I think that's gonna be it. You guys have anything else you want to
say? Yeah, go see Spider-Man: Far From Home. It's totally worth it. I know that everybody's starting to get that light superhero fatigue, but go see Far From Home. It's totally worth. And it's the last Marvel movie for a while, right?
Yeah, they haven't officially announced the next one, so we just have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it will be next year. We just don't know what it is.
Right. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Aren't there like a bunch? Yeah, there's a bunch in the works, but we don't know which one's coming out first or even when it will come out. But yeah, so get your fix now. I don't have anything else to say. I guess we got to do the thank yous.
Thank you.
Thank you to American Spirits for the use of their song ADHD at the beginning and end of our podcast. Zach, who do you want to thank?
I want to thank you, the listeners, for listening to us, driving us, telling all your friends about us.
All right. Josh, who do you want to thank?
I want to thank our man, Cirkerberger, for letting us use his See It, Play It, Skip It theme.
Nice. And where can we find you on the internet, Zach?
Zach the Pigeon on Twitter.
All right. And what about you, Josh? Where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me at Josh Hooligan R on Twitter and Instagram. Joshua Hooligan on YouTube. I will be posting my first 2 Joker videos this month. Cesar Romero's performance in 1966 Batman and Jack Nicholson's performance in 1989 Batman on my quest to discover who is the best Joker. So stay tuned for that.
Wow, it's going to be really tough to not pick the GOAT.
The one obvious one?
Yeah.
Jared Leto, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Joaquin Phoenix, bro. Obviously. The trailer was enough.
Yeah. The trailer was enough. He's already the GOAT.
You can find me on the internet somewhere because I don't remember my own Twitter handle. That's how long it's been. My beard has grown and been shaved 3 times since the last time I've seen a social media. I think that's it. Those are the last words before I just word vomit all over the back end of this podcast.
And make sure to watch Stranger Things Season 3 if you want to listen to our spoiler review next week.
Spoilies, if you want them big spoilies. Or if you don't care, then don't watch it, and we'll tell you basically everything that happens like we just did with Spider-Man Far From Home. We didn't even discuss the end credit scenes and what they could possibly mean.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, they're good. They're totally worth it. So go see Spider-Man. Maybe next week we'll talk about the end credit scenes and what they actually might entail for the MCU.